We do want to thank Dr. Janin Bredehoeft for joining us here on such short notice. Thank you so much for being here. Before we get started, a little thought starter for you all. Did you know that STEM fields, that is science, technology, engineering and mathematics, are the key drivers for the future, but also has one of the biggest gender gaps. In fact, women comprise only 37% of enrolments in university STEM courses, 19% for engineering and mathematics. In total, women comprise 27% of the STEM workforce, but they earn 18% less than their male counterparts. That amounts to an annual difference of $27,000. There is a lot we need to do, and Dr. Janin Bredehoeft, that is one of your main goals. You are with the CEO of Science in Australia Gender Equality. Thank you so much for joining us here today. Firstly, tell us a bit about yourself.
Thank you for having me here today. It really is a pleasure, and thank you for UN Women Australia for putting up this event. Yeah, I am actually an immigrant. I grew up in regional Germany, and I had to take the bus early in the morning to go to school, which was really annoying because I really am not a morning person. And later on, I needed to hitchhike back from school because school was really far away. Now, one might not think that's possible in Germany, but it was. So for me, it was like I really wanted to leave the country, go to the city and explore and, grow and go to an education institution. However, my parents couldn't afford to pay for me to live in the city and go to university. So I did enroll in a nursing degree, which by the time when I studied was a paid sort of apprenticeship, and I also got student accommodation. So that really helped me out of getting, not having to get up that early wasn't the case there as well. I really had to do early shift work as well. However, I got out of regional Australia, and then in nursing, which is really female dominated, but on the contrary, medicine really male-dominated. So I really learned more about inequalities, cultures that persisted in a male-dominated field, particularly when looking at operating theatres or on intensive care, where I then worked. I wanted to understand more about inequality. I wanted to understand more what drives it, and I went to uni and studied economics. And that was same a bit male-dominated, 30% of female, I think, in economics these days. But I also there, studied inequalities and needed to understand why our systems do still perpetuate, our current structure, really. Yeah, fast forward, I moved to Australia to study, and then I stayed, and I found myself in another difficult financial situation because I separated from my partner with 2 kids, and in the middle of my PhD studies. And luckily, I started joining the Workplace Gender Equality Agency on a part-time basis there, and learned even more about inequality and foremost pay inequality. But also looking at data fields and, still working in that male-dominated field, yet being very fortunate to work in an organization that was very fortunate to have a lot of policies and practices in place to support me, and whether it would be on my part-time employment and whether it would be through finalizing my studies in PhD. However, I think through my career, what I always want is to change the status quo, because, we know we have the codes, and we know that and we've heard it today, we know that our systems don't work. They don't support people that are coming from, people that are women, people that are coming from other marginalised groups. So I'm really here and now with SAGE, hopefully to more disrupt the system and, really change the status quo.
A lot of these male-dominated industries have an inherent bias towards women, and that obviously discourages women from getting into those industries in the first place. I mean, what really needs to change to encourage more women to enter STEM fields?
I do think that there are a lot of women out there who are keen and want to explore and are there. I mean, Catherine Fox said it is not the women. We have capable women. We have women starting in STEM degrees. We really do have a problem with retention, and we need to remove barriers in workplaces and even in higher education institutions to support really to support women throughout their life cycle. I mean, I think that organisations, for example, there's a lot of HR practices that harm women and disadvantaged groups, and I've seen it through my work at WGA, and we've seen it all. For example, how many times have you seen a job offer in a private sector that has a salary range offered?
Oh, not a lot.
Not a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that of course does disadvantage people because it doesn't put us on an even level field if we want to apply for roles. So I think, being more mindful and gender, having jobs advertised, removing bias towards gender, being transparent about pay is certainly one action that organizations can do. But also look at how do we promote our people, how do we assess the people that we promote in organizations? Do we look at achievements relative to opportunity, or do we look at achievements relative to seniority and length of time, which is most often the case? So these are harmful practices for women because we know they do not have the same opportunities as men who tend to work full-time and women who tend to work part-time. And lastly, I think great thing for retention of people is we need leaders to be trained. We need leaders to be trained in debiasing recruitment and promotion, in gender equality and diversity and inclusion, because leaders are the people, and particularly middle managers, who communicate with our staff and who communicate with the outside world as well.
Now, before we wrap up, Janine, we're also going to open up the microphone. The audience will have a chance to ask you a few questions as well. So anyone who would like to ask Dr. Janin Bredehoeft, some questions, the microphone is just there in the centre of the room. Janine, what does a gender equal future in STEM look like, and is it even achievable?
Everything is achievable, I think. I am the glass half full person, and we can do it. I do think that particularly what the Minister was referring to, pay transparency, organisational pay transparency will make a difference, but further on, being more open about pay in terms of job advertisements as well. I do also think that gender-responsive procurement will be a lever to drive change because it does incentivise organisations to really look at the policies and practices they have. But, I do think also we do need much greater data. We need more data to move beyond the binary data collection that we currently have. That's also something we're on the way, but I think we can move a bit faster there too. And then I do think that we need those innovative ideas using AIs to actually, maybe AIs could check policies and practices, how they are biased or how they discriminate against certain people. Do your women get the same promotions and development opportunities as men? So yes, that's my sort of midterm goal.
Are there any suggestions that you have to make more appealing for women to enter, say, the science or engineering industries?
Yeah, I think engagement early on with students is very important, and I think support in terms of what I've experienced coming from a low socioeconomic background. Financial was a barrier for me, so any programs and scholarships are of course well received, and there's a lot of, I think, women and girls from rural areas, from all areas and diverse, are very resilient and they know how to fight. They're very creative. So anything that can support them on the financial basis is really important. And then making sure that once they enter these workplaces or education places, we have safe workplaces for everyone to belong is important.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Janin Bredehoeft. Is there anyone in the audience who'd like to ask a question? No, I think we've covered it all. Fantastic. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it, everything that you're doing, and hopefully... Oh, no, we do have someone. There we go. The microphone is just in the centre of the room. Right there. Fantastic. The lights are very bright, so...
We can't see you.
Yes,
really.
we can't really see you.
That's okay, I'm short as well. I was in the naughty corner, so it took me a while to get here. So the most obvious difference between men and women is that we bear the children. And so being a mom who took 10 years out of my career to stay home with my children, my husband is actually far more advanced than I am now that I've returned to the workforce. So my question is, what can we do with mandatory parental leave or paid paternity leave, that you use it or lose it like they do in Scandinavia, in order to sort of reduce that gap where it's not just the women that are home with small children?
Yes, you are absolutely right. I think the Scandinavian countries have shown that gender neutral parental leave and parental leave on a use it or lose it basis does work to engage men into care work, really. And of course women do 4 hours more care a week, or if that's the right statistic, I'm not so sure. However, in order to break that gap, it is really important to introduce universal parental leave or gender neutral parental leave on a use it or lose it basis. That is the cream de la cream. But then have the flexibility when we can take it, when men can take it, because we also know that the more flexible it is, the more likely men are taking it, even 2 days a week or something, which will greatly enhance their engagement with family and care as well.
Is there a need to look at the work week, perhaps lower it from 5 days to 4 days?
Jen, I am so a 4-day work week. I think if we have not used technology and innovation to then move to a 4-day work week in, I don't know, hopefully in my working lifetime, then I think we've done not great, or
we can dream. We have another question.
Hi. Sorry, I was right up the end, so I didn't get down here very fast. I think one of the things that you said before with men who work full-time and women who work predominantly part-time, and building on the lady before me with the question about, women being the primary carer in a lot of situations. I think my question is just more about wanting to get your thoughts on how do we break down some of the barriers, I think, for the higher positions where it's really seen as not being able to be performed part-time. So when you're in higher roles, this perception that you have to be full-time, you have to be present within these hours, that really creates a barrier, particularly for those with caring responsibilities or other responsibilities, to really participate at that higher level in organisations.
Excellent question.
Excellent question. And absolutely true that we still, I think, have in mind the pictures that were shown before is one, what is a CEO and what is a leader and who's clever. It also would have asked the question, what is a leader? It would be a full-time person, always present in the office. That is sort of our norm and our perception or stereotype that we have to break. We have to ask ourselves, does this leadership role really need to be full-time? If so, why? Or can we do it part-time? If so, why not? I think we haven't broken that barrier yet either, because the status quo is a leader is a full-time male currently. So whatever we can do to break that stereotypes. And I'm sure there's lots and lots of examples where leaders are working part-time, do job share, and can be the role models that we need for the future to change this.
Okay, I think that's all for today. Thank you so much, Dr. Janin Bredehoeft, for joining us here and on such short notice. We really appreciate it. Thank you, and we appreciate the work that you're doing will hopefully inspire a new generation. Oh, we do have more people. Sorry, it is the lighting.
We can't see.
Yeah. Okay, yes.
Unfortunately, I think that COVID has given the workforce an inroad for women in regards to working from home and the way that we can restructure the way that we contribute to the workforce and manage to, you know, as primary carers, stay at home and manage both looking after our children and contributing to the workforce. It has given us the opportunity to reduce in a lot of cases travel time, so that you actually be able to the hours that you would spend in a vehicle driving to work for those who live in a larger metropolitan area than we do in Canberra, because we are very fortunate that, you know, one side of Canberra to the other side is not far. But it has allowed many people to, mostly women, to be able to contribute in such a way and to prove that even though we are working from home, that we are contributing more than we may have been if we had been having to travel into a workplace, and therefore promoting the fact that part-time work and reduced hours is beneficial because of the way that we can work in these environments. So I hate to say it again, but thank you, COVID, for shining a light on a new way of doing work for all people, both men and women, in a parental role.
Very true, thank you. That's true.
I don't think there was a question.
Sorry? Oh, it's another one.
Hi.
Hello.
I have a 3-year-old daughter, and in my professional career and work for experience, an underlying fear or anxiety that drives me to participate in the workforce for as long as I can, for as much as I can, is the risk of not having enough superannuation by the time I retire. The statistics is that women overall, but especially those in the 50s and older, are most vulnerable from homelessness, financial stress, inadequate super, because for the way that our society and community and our workforce is structured, women have been held back for financial... We've made great progress in providing financial independence for women generally, but there is still so many systemic barriers, socially, culturally, politically, that still provide barriers for where women can't participate in the full depth and breadth that they can, in the same way that men are afforded. And it's a small anxiety that I have. And I'm not in my 50s yet. And I hope that the generations after me won't have that same anxiety, especially for my daughter, because I don't think it's a realistic expectation that in perhaps 20 years' time that there will be a social safety net where we will have a sufficient pension to provide equally and adequately for our ageing population, especially for women in marginalised rural, regional communities where they are cut off without technology, without access to local facilities. So for my 3-year-old daughter, and for all other small girls and women, young women, what message could we give to them? And do you have a personal message that perhaps I could take home to my daughter?
That's very touching. I very much feel you, and I think that's why part of me is also here. I have not a 3-year-old anymore, a 12-year-old, and knowing that, as you said, the statistic is very clear. Women above the age of 55 are more likely to live in poverty and old age than men. The superannuation system, unfortunately, is built on the premise that we work full-time for our entire life. That is not working for 50% of the population. So I do think that your daughter, or that with financial literacy within your family and with all of us, we can make sure that, we eliminate the gender pay gap first, which then will eliminate the superannuation pay gap. We create workplaces where equal pay for equal value and comparable value of money is the norm, it's no question. We then make sure that means there's enough superannuation going into the system for our children. And when it comes to parental leave, paying superannuation on parental leave is one key driver. And looking at the family as well, how can superannuation be shared between, the parents? Like, it doesn't need to be the female who's losing out on superannuation. I don't think it's the message. It's an easy message to your 3-year-old daughter, unfortunately.
We still have a very long way to go, but I think
yes,
we're making
we
a
do.
lot of
That's
ground
right.
here. And I'm sorry, but I think we've run out of time for questions. But again, thank you so much for joining us. And we do hope that you have inspired a new generation into the fields that will be the future. STEM, science, engineering and mathematics, technology is the future. And we need more women in those industries. So thank you again.
Thank you.